and welcome to the Motorsport Coaching Podcast, sponsored by Motivate Training and Management. This is a podcast where we talk to drivers and industry experts to help you maximize your performances on and off the track. Let's get started with today's show. Hi guys, and welcome to episode 24 of the Motorsport Coaching Podcast. I am your host, Belinda Risley. Today I had the pleasure of interviewing Mark Campbell. Mark is the director of Xenon Technologies. If you want to know what it is, keep listening. He's had an amazing career over the last 15 years through motorsport, and his journey's been absolutely amazing, from the Navy to Formula Ones. He still works for Mercedes to this very day. Doing what? You'll need to keep listening. So, without further ado, here's Mark. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Pleasure. Thank you for the invite. Thank you.
I'm very excited to have you on the show today. Going through your LinkedIn profile, you've done so many amazing things that I'm sure many of the listeners out there would only aspire to achieve. Can you tell us or share your story to date?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like many people, I found my motorsport path somewhat difficult. I started my career in the Navy, both in the Royal Navy in the UK and then subsequently in the Australian Navy in the mid-90s through to the mid-2000s. In my last few years in the Navy, I managed to develop a relationship with the minority F1 team to actually get a number of junior engineers into the pits and work with the guys at each of the Australian Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And essentially felt that really that's where my career was headed. So I left the Navy to search and seek my career in motorsport. And as with many people, volunteered for a number of trackside roles within Australian motorsport with GT Championship and Porsche Carrera Cup and a little bit of V8 Supercar until I guess in the 2010, 2011, I had my first opportunity to work in Formula One and literally packed my bags, flew over to the UK.
Oh, fantastic. And so what are you doing there now? Like, what does your role involved? And over the last 7 or 8 years, have you predominantly just been in Formula Ones?
So the past 8 years, I've worked primarily in Formula One, also in Australian motorsport with Xenon Technologies, providing new innovative products in motorsport lighting, automotive lighting safety systems. But my motorsport, Formula One, Australian motorsport experience has been involved in a range of things, from providing data analysis and training services initially in Australia, through to providing systems engineering and project management activities for Formula One teams and also for the FIA. Mm-hmm. And then obviously coming back and forth between Australia to work both, as I said, from a commercial management perspective from Xenon, and then keeping my hands in on the track side of things, just to, I guess, provide some systems engineering and data analysis as well. My most recent experience over here outside of Xenon is working for the Australian Invader 5R World Land Speed Record Challenge. So providing them with electronic systems support. So I'm heading off to WA next week to help them with that as well.
Yeah, and is that how Xenon Technologies started, as a more of a consultancy-based business? And
so Xenon is, or has been, very much a startup company led by Robert Lancialotti, who has founded an innovative product for emergency notification and safety lighting. Initially for motorcycles, but we've grown that into the automotive, motorsport, mobility and agricultural vehicle sector. And that essentially is the next step for that is to grow the product range and then actually leverage that across the world to the US market. And that's been helped by me traveling around the world, predominantly in Formula One. That's allowed me to piggyback some of that activity by promoting the capability to manufacturers and to investors, both in Europe and in the USA. So that's very much for me, a consultative role, but always the trouble with these things is that the success grows,
Yes.
so does the amount of work. So I suspect it will be a full-time role coming to 2019, 2020.
Wow. And so obviously all of those connections be made via your great networking skills. So you mentioned you're the commercial manager of Xenon. What does that role actually entail? So just on selling all those services and products you just mentioned, or is there a little bit more to it?
So it's everything really. I mean, as you have with any startup, you are working from the code phase through to the strategic level of management. In my role, albeit my main focus is on the motorsport sector, Australia, unlike Europe, isn't a massive motorsport industry. I think we're about the seventh in terms of I guess global financial might around the world, but essentially our industry is quite low. There's only a number of small companies that actually provide innovative products.
Yeah.
So unlike Europe, where the motorsport sector can sometimes lead the automotive sector, over here it generally is the other way around. So we realized very quickly that pitching the product to the motorsport sector in Australia would probably be the second or third option, and predominantly the transportation and agricultural and specifically the mobility sector would be our primary focus. And then, so my role essentially is to work with a number of investors around the world to actually obviously get them to fund the manufacturing of the product in country. So what we try to do is sell the whole package to countries, so they take on the manufacturing, distribution, and advertising within their own geographic domain. So that way, it keeps our overheads low, and also manufacturing in Australia tends to be somewhat more expensive than other countries in certain areas, but it also has some benefits in other areas as well. So we try and take the best from each country and provide them a full package that they can take ownership of that product. So my role is everything from working with our engineering and design teams to develop new products, through to looking at the marketing, putting out some new strategies from a sales perspective, going out, working with customers, networking, as we mentioned, obviously negotiating the contracts, doing the deals, and basically being also the motorsport face of Xenon Technologies. So, you know, I mean, it's been lucky. I mean, my roles have been very, very well. I guess you could say, if I wanted to put it the right way, I've strategically chosen them, but I think there's been more luck than judgment in some cases. But essentially, working with the FIA has certainly been useful, because it's allowed me to work with people like Charlie Whiting and a number of other people in the FIA to showcase our products. Although not receive their endorsement, certainly receive their interest, and obviously then leverage that onto grassroots motorsport and other events.
Yeah, very interesting. And what has been the most favorite role? Like, obviously you've done various roles throughout your career, and they all sound very different and hitting different elements. Well, which one's been your favorite?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I'll probably answer this with two roles, but in a slightly different way. So the one that stands out emotionally for me is my first Formula One role, and that's with Mercedes Formula One high performance engines. That was a task for me of 10 years, or a journey of 10 years for me to achieve what essentially was my main mission, and that was to achieve a career in Formula One. So the day that I was accepted by them was an extremely emotional day for me, I can assure you. So that one stands out in my mind. But in terms of enjoyment and excitement, I guess it was working with the FIA, traveling to every Grand Prix for 3 or 4 years, and that was basically quite a challenging role in itself, both logistically, physically, emotionally, from a family perspective as well, being away from the family for the best part of each year, but nevertheless had some exciting challenges. And when I look back on my photographs and my Facebook pages and all the rest of it, you know, it's something that I really enjoyed, and certainly hope, certainly people that are interested in that sort of field, and also my own children can aspire to. So that one stands out.
Now, and you just mentioned before about family. How did you go working away all the time? Is your family based here in Australia? Are they based in the UK, or where in the world? Yeah, did your family come about and start?
Well, I can assure you I'm still married,
Yeah, fantastic.
but and my kids haven't disowned me. But essentially, it's not easy. So it's hard. I mean, I've worked with guys in the UK, male and female, who have got their partners, and many are very strong relationships, and others, fall by the wayside, sadly. But it's and there's no hidden trick to this. I mean, luckily I've got a very, very understanding wife. I mean, she and I met when I was in the Navy, so she was used to me being away. The irony of me leaving the Navy to spend more time with my family and then going to Formula One obviously isn't lost on her. But nevertheless, so we had the opportunities on a number of occasions for her to fly out to some of the Grand Prix like Singapore and the USA and what have you. But for the most part, really I was on my own, living out of a suitcase in hotels. For the trips around the world, there were opportunities between a number of races to come home, and I took that opportunity as best I could. And also during the 3 month or 2.5 3 month off period, I was home continually for that period of time. So we had over that 3 or 4 years some significant home time as well as me being away. But when I was working for Mercedes, as I was last year and early this year, I was away continually for a year. So I would fly home on holidays or Christmas, what have you. But the intent was always to be away for no more than a year. And even that's a struggle. And as everybody finds when they come home, you are the square peg in the round hole. So you've got to find your way back into the family unit. So it does, it comes with its challenges. I wouldn't say otherwise, and I owe a lot to my family. But essentially, they know that this is what I enjoy. This is what I'm good at, and this is, what I want to look back on my deathbed and go, yes, I did that. So, so with that level of support, you can't go wrong.
Oh, lovely. And are your kids into motorsport?
My youngest loves Mercedes, so whether that's because I work for them or whether it's because he wants me to work for them, I'm not really sure. But he certainly is a big Lewis Hamilton fan. So yes, he's into motorsport. He's quite young. The other two, not so much. My eldest two don't really have much of an interest in it. But that said, I have taken them to some motorsport events, and they've enjoyed being part of that. So certainly, I think they may not be avid fans, but they certainly enjoy the atmosphere when we go to them.
Yes, well, we all love motorsport listening, so we can all agree with you on that part. And what about yourself, Mark? Have you actually competed in motorsports, or were you just an avid fan that, as you said, just found this passion when you were working in the Navy?
Yeah, more the latter. I mean, I learned long ago to know what your strengths and weaknesses are, and although you can really build on your weaknesses, you should leverage your strengths. And my strength has always been in engineering and program management. I mean, I've done karting as a hobby type thing, but nothing really significantly serious. So I knew that providing the innovation in the background and being in that sort of sphere of operation was more akin to my psyche. So that's really where I've excelled and what I enjoy. But nevertheless, if somebody offers me the opportunity to get in a car and go around the track, I'm going to take it. Of course I am.
Have you been in the Formula One?
So officially no. Unofficially, don't tell anybody, but obviously I'm on the podcast, so everyone's going to hear. Yes, I've sat in a car, but certainly, of course, they're not going to let you drive it. But yes, we've all sort of, I'm sure there are a lot of secret photographs out there of people sitting in Formula One cars, and I've probably got a couple.
And so, Mark, with your education to get into engineering, was that obtained through the Navy, or was that something that you did straight after school? Like, how did you get into your role educationally?
So when I left school at 16 in the UK, in the dark old days of CSEs, as they used to call them in the UK in those days, I did 2 years of electronics engineering in college, similar to a TAFE course over here, with the intent of joining the Navy. I mean, I grew up in a naval family next to a Navy base. You know, my career was mapped out at the age of 14. I knew that's what I wanted to do. But I just wasn't ready for it at 16. I just wasn't physically or emotionally ready to throw myself into uniform at the time. So I did 2 years in college learning how electrons and TVs and radios and so forth worked at the time. So when I joined the Navy as an aircraft technician, avionics, the training at the time became relatively easy to me because I had 2 years head start on most of that. So I went into the radio radar aircraft engineering field, which purely from I guess the focus of operation on aircraft engineering is very similar to motorsport. So over essentially almost 20-year career, both in the UK and in Australia, I had that psyche of capability to move into motorsport. And luckily, well, I say luckily, I mean, it was a large amount of hard work, but the Navy allowed me to undertake my degree in electronics engineering at RMIT in the early 2000s. So that gave me, I guess, the extra string to the bow. So for when I went into Formula One, having a degree certainly is extremely useful. It's certainly not the be all and end all, but certainly it does give you the leverage to get into your foot in the door. So that was very useful, and I think I owe the Navy my career in that regard.
Yeah, so we try and encourage a lot of the drivers, especially those beginner to amateurs that are wanting to take this profession seriously, to obviously have an education in something. So whether it's actually motorsport related or business related. So it was great to hear your pathway of getting to the top, really.
Well, I mean, and you're absolutely right. So I mean, this is why my first foray into Australian motorsport was to actually roll out what arguably was the first postgraduate online motorsport training courses in Australia. Because I knew that many people who I was volunteering with trackside, the average salary was zero, and their aspirations were limited by the ability to have a formal level of education to move into international motorsport. So I flew over to the UK to negotiate a contract with Oxford Brookes University so we could tailor and roll out that training in Australia, which we did 2008. And that resulted in at least 3 people of whom I know personally moving to the UK or working internationally, both in Formula One and also in international motorsport. So,
oh wow!
So for that reason, and that's always been a passion of mine. It's never, in that respect, it's never been about the financial return. It's been about the return on investment for people actually achieving their career goal, as in much the way as I've done. So for that, I'm really grateful for Oxford Brookes for giving us the opportunity to do that.
So you mentioned that was 10 years ago. Is there any chance you're going to run it out again, or like you said, it was quite successful?
Look, it was, and I mean, we ran it for about 3 or 4 years. There was a change in structure within Oxford Brookes, and the chap that I was working with sadly moved on to other things. However, my expectation is to work with him in the future. So it may not be Oxford Brookes, but nevertheless, the training courses will be very much a tailored affair. I guess the issue now is finding the window of opportunity amongst everything else I'm doing to actually to do that. But if what I'm saying now inspires somebody to take something on in that respect, I'm more than happy to help, because at the end of the day, there's a whole gambit of opportunities out there, and Australian engineers make up a large part of that pool of international motorsport fraternity. So the more we got going out there and the more opportunities we got, I'm more than happy to help achieve them.
Oh, fantastic. And how can people get in contact with you then, Mark? What's the best way if people have got some questions or...
So essentially, I guess Xenon is my main area of operation. That's where I tend to receive a large amount of my communication. I'm also can be found on LinkedIn. I tend to have quite a large network on there, and I try to be as proactive quietly, in the sense of not so much public publication, but certainly private messaging. I'm happy to help. In fact, there's a number of people that have contacted me recently on LinkedIn asking me about employment options, and although I don't have anything myself, I'm always happy to try and point them in the right direction and give them the hints and tips that I've used over, I guess, now what is it, close to 15 years of achieving as much success as I possibly can within the industry. You know, it is fraught with so many difficulties and challenges. It's a huge market of people trying to get the right jobs or the right opportunities for sponsorship or employment, or any of the opportunities within. But nevertheless, if there's anything I can offer people to help them achieve that, just chink away at the ice cube, so to speak, I'm happy to help.
Well, thanks for that offer, Mark. Now, obviously, you've been around for 15 years, as you've just pointed out, and you've lived across the world. What are some of the differences that you've seen between Australia, I guess, based events, sponsorships and categories from the international ones? How different are we in Australia?
We certainly punch above our weight here.
Okay.
And that's inspiring. I mean, budgets are obviously the biggest factor. So grassroots in Europe is probably at the same level as probably V8 supercar, and slightly maybe above than what we see here. So sponsors tend to be more capable of providing financial and commercial support for talented drivers in Europe, more so than you would get over in Australia. And the return on investment there is much greater, because most events are televised on some level of prime time or pay TV of some description. So they tend to see the benefits in a much clearer mindset than you would in Australia. And that's understandable, when you've got, although the coverage of grassroots racing in Australia is very good, it's not to the level as it is in Europe. And also the market size over here is much smaller. So it's difficult over here to obtain, to see good drivers move forward into international or certainly high-level motorsport. Although no CAMs have increased its capability in terms of the F4, F3 series to provide a pathway, and that's very encouraging. Nevertheless, without the commercial support, it's very difficult for young drivers to make that next step. And as we mentioned before, the education and the industry over here is quite limited. So that's, I don't want to paint a black picture, because that's not really where Australia is. We're actually stronger than most countries, but we do limit ourselves in that capacity. I guess the one thing, though, if I want to look at a positive, is no matter where you are in the world in motorsport, the camaraderie and the atmosphere in each of the pit lanes, in the paddocks and in the back of the trailers or whatever it might be, is exactly the same. It's only the taste of champagne that changes in that respect.
Oh, and over there in Europe, you're saying about the base route being different. Is that like even just for the Micro Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, It is. I mean, essentially, what you find over there is that promotional activities in and outside of the paddock, so between races and what have you, there are much greater opportunities, and the commercial market for the sponsors is much larger because you've got the whole of Europe and if not, the rest of the world to actually leverage your product on. So whether things will change with Brexit, I don't know. That'd be interesting to see how that would impact on the motorsport sector. And I know there are murmurings about European insurances on motorsport events in Europe at the moment. So again, these things may have a financial impact, but certainly the opportunities for commercial leverage as they stand are much stronger than they are in Australia, albeit we have the opportunity to leverage into the Asia Pacific market, which in itself is significantly huge. So we just need to find that pathway.
And Mark, you mentioned before about having more live coverage in Europe. Do you feel that takes away the fan engagement at the track? Are the numbers better still, or are they lower because it is live coverage?
I guess it depends on the event. You're probably right in the sense that probably at the very low level, grassroots level, club level, for example, you might find numbers are quite limited. But then I would argue that maybe there's probably the same case in Australia. But at the national or mid-range motorsport sectors, even rally championships for that matter, you do tend to get a large number of attendees and spectators. But I remember some years ago when I was still living in the UK, there was a local Cornwall rally, so I lived right in the deep dark part of the UK, and the number of spectators there, and this was probably 1989, 1990, were quite significant in the sense of, it's in the middle of nowhere and it's places that are very hard to find, but rest assured there were a large number of people watching what was quite a low-key rally event. So the spectators do turn out in their hundreds and thousands, depending on the event.
Yes, I definitely feel like motorsport fans are very religious and passionate about their sport. So ideally, they're going to go wherever the sport is.
Absolutely. TV is great, but there's nothing like the sound and the smell. That's for certain.
That's right. So, Mark, in your spare time, you are an official you're a committee member on Karting Australia Officials. What do you do there? And you've been doing that for a long time. So,
Karting Australia, again, as I said, my passion I guess I say outside of motorsport, still within motorsport, is to help the next generation achieve success, whether it's behind the wheel or behind the engine, I guess. And Karting Australia, I guess, is that catalyst of driving career.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, KA took me on as an independent member of the officials committee board. My role essentially is to help review, I guess, from an independent perspective, the officials' rules and regulations in terms of obviously sporting regulations and some level of safety as well, to ensure that we achieve, I guess, equal competition and a good level of sporting prowess for karters within Australia. So with my experience, obviously working with the FIA and obviously around international motorsport, I've been able to bring some new ideas to their processes, but at the same time learn a significant amount from the very experienced committee members who have worked and flown flags and worked as officials at all these events. So it's inspiring to work with people like this, because these are the unsung heroes that work the weekends for nothing to actually help the young drivers achieve their success within motorsport in Australia.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot more that we can do to assist them as well. As you just said, if we don't have officials, unfortunately, we don't have a race meeting. So it's really important for everyone to really get behind and support those officials and get people to volunteer in their times to in order these race meetings go ahead. Now, Mark, what is the next project? Since you've been doing KA, you've got Xenon, you've got as well.
No, I mean, obviously, Xenon is, as I said, is ramping up, and the anticipation is that will become, I guess, my full-time focus going into the next 5 years at least. Nevertheless, I've never been a one-man band. I've always, try to keep my focus on the coalface as well as providing other levels of development support. So Xenon's number one. Number two is providing electronic systems support for the Invader 5R world land speed record. So I'm working with those guys to actually develop some electronics integration systems into the vehicle at the moment, so they can undertake the 1,000 mile per hour challenge in 2020. So that will keep my electronics head still buzzing. And then on top of that, obviously, still working with KA to provide the support where they need it there. And other opportunities as they come along. I mean, I've never been one to say no to opportunities. Whether that's a good or bad thing, I've yet to try and work that one out. But nevertheless, that's where my focus is at the moment. So we'll see where that leads in the next couple of years.
And can you tell us a little about Extreme Beam?
So Extreme Beam essentially is a fully integrated extreme light package. So it produces a light which can be seen from around about 5 kilometers away, with a significant pulse of lighting, which basically has the intellectual property fitted under the chassis, so it actually provides a glow of light around the vehicle. Now, this came about predominantly because most injuries, and sadly fatal injuries in Australia, based on motorcycles and agricultural vehicles and quad bikes, for example, out in the bush, tend to happen because people overturn or they get injured whilst out in the middle of nowhere and have no capability of contacting family or friends or emergency services to let them know, and they tend to sadly pass away for exposure. So we came across the opportunity to provide a product that not only provides a lighting visual aspect for anybody that's broken down or in similar hazard anywhere within Australia, but also provides a notification to family and friends through its mobile communication capability of your lat and long coordinates, and also emergency services notification if it's incorporated. So it really is I guess an EPIRB for the road or for the off-road.
Yeah, sounds amazing.
And yeah, look, it's an amazing technology, and we've also been able to leverage it onto the mobility sector. So, and we've changed lives, and that's, to me, is the moral compass of the organisation. It helps to benefit people, to give, from both from the safety perspective, but also for adding value to life. And that, to me, is the biggest success that any company could ever achieve.
Yeah, what a rewarding initiative. Well done on that, Mark, and your team. It sounds fantastic. Is it ready now to be purchased, or is it still in?
So at the moment, we're working at OEM level. So we're not going third party or aftermarket just yet.
Yep.
But that's our next stage, and that's where we'll be ramping up in 2019 and 2020 to develop off-the-shelf products. So at the moment, we're working with OEMs to integrate it in new systems, motorcycles, mobility, agricultural systems, and what have you. But the next step is to go aftermarket.
Well, it definitely sounds like retirement not on the card anytime soon there, Mark.
No, I don't think so.
Between that, the educational programs, the data analysis. It sounds like you're going to be busy in the next couple of years to come. So can't wait to hear more about your journey as you continue on this great career of yours. Thank you very much for being a guest today. Just before we wrap up, Mark, do you have any words of advice, although you've already given lots, about getting started in engineering, about working within the motorsport industry, I guess, for people who are contemplating it, regardless of what category or what part of the sport?
Yeah, there's plenty, but the key ones, without a doubt, is never take no for an answer. Absolutely do not take no for an answer. There's always a solution. It may not be immediately available. It might take 10 years, it might take 12 years, but just keep pushing. On top of that, the biggest factor is be where the action is. So that's from volunteering trackside to providing low cost support or whatever it might be. I mean, what I did is I started up my own motorsport company. So it gave you some level of recognition, and then went trackside and provided the support, from that perspective. So it gave you, I guess, the kudos to move forward. Now, on top of that, really, it's a case of developing different strategies to actually achieve your success. So everybody fails, but you need to analyze why you failed and what you can do better next time, and really just keep hammering at the same people. I mean, just as a side, the reason I got the Formula One job is because I'd had an interview with them in 2008. I was unsuccessful, but I maintained contact with two of the people that interviewed me. I asked their advice on how to change different tacks and different educational processes within my resume, and I pushed at that. Whether I succeeded in that regard, I don't know, but by maintaining contact, I was able to get the job in 2010 when it came up. So it's just keep going. Do not give up.
And again, it comes back to that networking aspect, doesn't it? So it's about building that network of community of industry experts and colleagues, and just being around sport.
That's right, and very much so. But it's not just a case of adding people to your LinkedIn account. It's really engaging with them, and working with people to, and giving them as much as they want to give you. So just asking questions is never enough, but certainly, showing that you're a capable person within the sport, within the industry. And this is equally important for sponsorship and commercial development and other areas of the sport as it is from an employment perspective. It's showing that positive reputation, and it's in Australia. It's hard to achieve, and it's very easy to lose. So it's maintaining positive contact with people, and a very positive reputation is key.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It needs to be a win-win prospect for both parties. Everyone, it's not just a give. And unfortunately, there's some people out there just think that it's sponsorship, as well as getting higher up into race categories, think it's all just about them, but they need to be able to have that ability to share the love, really.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a good way to put it, yes.
Share the love. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Mark. I really appreciate that. It was an interesting story, and definitely you've achieved a lot in that 15 years of your career, so well done.
Thank you very much. It's very kind. It's not until you talk about it you realise how much you've actually achieved as a person, but I've still got a long way to go. I'm successful in some ways, and but obviously you still want to maintain, that reputation, that career path within the sport. So it's been great to talk about it. So thank you.
Yeah, make sure you check in with the family for Christmas, though.
Yeah. Yes. No. They're outside everything else, they're 100% of my time. So rest assured that we'll have a great Christmas, and to you and your family, of course.
Thank you very much, Mark. Now, I always finish off the podcast with the pine question of what is your favourite racetrack? Obviously, you've been to many in the world.
So again, can I answer this with more than one? But
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so for on-track action, Bathurst, without a doubt. It's just the most amazing, challenging track ever. In terms of atmosphere, Monaco, it's just an amazing place to be. And of course, like everybody in motorsport, for partying, Hungary is surprising. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the best party places in the world, without a doubt.
Wow. So it's just a party for a week when the F1's are on, or it's just a constant party place? I've never been there.
So if my employer is listening, I don't party all week. But no, it's an amazing place. Yeah, Budapest is fantastic. Yeah, it's really good.
Oh, well, there you go. There's some interesting new tracks to add to our list. Again, Mark, thank you for your time. All of Mark's details will be in today's show notes. If you want to get in contact with Mark, as I said, if you are looking to get onto that journey for engineering, it certainly would be worth connecting with Mark on LinkedIn and having a quick conversation about how to get started.
My pleasure.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Pleasure. Thanks, Belinda. And yeah, best of luck to yourself and to all your listeners. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thanks everyone for listening to this week's show. I really hope you enjoyed that one as much as I did. Now, remember, all the show notes with the links and the specials mentioned in today's show are available over at motivatetraining.com.au. If you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you could head to iTunes or Stitcher, type in Motorsport Coaching, subscribe, and leave us a review. Each week, I'll read them out and you'll go into monthly draw to win a fantastic prize. If you have any questions or comments, please email us at motivatetraining.com.au or head over to our Facebook page at Motivate to Tea. Until next time, take care.